I want to start, though, with you being as someone who either is or could be characterized as self-help in that genre. To come clean, I've always had something of a judgmental outlook towards self-help and determining what amount of that is my pretentiousness and what amount is that I'm perceiving a genuine smell of hackishness all over the self-help genre. And I think I have to imagine I'm not the only one who feels this way when they go through the self-help section in the bookstore. And so, in one of your podcasts, you recommended, I think, a book called Mindset by Dweck. And that, coming from you, I take the recommendation very seriously. But I think, if I don't know, if I just saw it in a bookstore, I would immediately dismiss it as BS self-help. So how does one distinguish snake oil from real advice? And, can you help me adjust my attitude towards the genre?
So that one, having that degree of skepticism is very wise. And I think people should have skepticism with this stuff. It really is an industry fraught with snake oil salesmen, and the human ability to give yourself over to what you want to believe versus what is actually true is very scary. And, as the quote goes, madness is rare in the individual, but it's the norm in groups. And so when you start looking at what I think we're living through now is a time where people's desire for something to be true has hit like this weird crescendo. And so people are acting as if there actually is data to back up that, the way that we're trying to move actually gives us the outcome that we want. So if you focus on the notion of outcomes, like everything that we do is a test, and we run a test and then we look at the data. And if you find people in the self-help industry that have a results-based orientation, like Carol Dweck with the book Mindset, she's a Stanford professor that's, looking at decades of research into does the sort of fundamental frame of reference that a person approaches the world, does it have real world implications? And the book makes a very compelling case that if you believe that the world is out to get you, that your talent and intelligence are fixed traits and there's nothing that you can do to improve them, then it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And everywhere that you look, you will see the evidence for the fact that the world is against you. You will see evidence of the fact that your talent and intelligence are just you're born with them, and that's that. But if, on the other hand, you believe that, no, I may not be good at this right now, that doesn't mean that I can't get good at this. And that fundamental switch, what I have come to call the only belief that matters, once you believe that energy put into getting better results in you actually getting better, then that changes the way that you behave. And ultimately, the whole idea behind self-help should be to improve your skill set and governing your behavior through the belief that time spent on improving will have a real world consequence. So the most important thing that I want people to understand, and when you find self-help stuff that adheres to this rule, then a world opens up to you. Mm-hmm. What I want people to understand is skills have utility. So being an architect means you can build shit that doesn't fall down. Right. And that's a thing. And being able to build a bridge that spans a body of water and people can drive cars over, that's real. Building a house, it's real. GPS is real. Like cars are real. Like that was people having to figure something out, whether it's material sciences on better tires or machining so that we can actually build the parts that we need, or understanding internal combustion. Like all of this shit terraforms it. It can terraform a planet. It can literally shape our societies. And that's skills having utility. And that to me is all self-help is. It's just about skill acquisition. But because you first have to shape the mindset to create the right frame of reference, the lens through which you view the world, you get a lot of charlatans and a lot of people that bullshit about things about the mind. And because of that, it's a mixed bag. Some's real and some is total horseshit.
Yeah, so you touched on something there which I think is really important. And, you said this gets into the topic of objective truth versus subjective truth. this is something you've spoken about in a self-help context and a self-improvement context. You don't believe in the notion of objective truth, or you think, it's useful to believe certain truths that may not even be true. Can you talk a little bit about how you think about that?
I can. And this is my version of the third rail. Like, this is the dangerous thing about my frame of reference, that if people misunderstand, they're going to get themselves into real trouble. So what I would say is truth, as in I do A and I get B consequence. If you don't understand that, you are really fucked, and you are just going down a path that nothing but woe awaits you. Now, regarding yourself, because of the way the mind works, so the human brain uses heuristics to get you to be able to navigate the world. The human brain has absolutely no interest in objective reality. The human brain has tremendous interest in keeping you alive long enough to have children that have children. Okay, so that's the brain's job. Now, reality is the number of photons falling on an object that reflect back to your eye. And so if you were looking objectively at the things around me, it would be a mathematical equation having to do with the volume of space, having to do with the reflected photons. Like, that's objective. And so when you realize that your brain is actually encased in total darkness and light never touches your brain, sound never touches your brain, it is literally chemical and electrical signals that your brain then creates a virtual reality. And it's a very compelling and useful virtual reality that lets you move around without bumping into too much shit, but it isn't objectively real. Now, why does that matter? It matters because of things like you're something like 5 times more likely to believe something that's negative about yourself than you are to believe something that's positive about yourself. You are 50% hardwired, so says science, and 50% malleable. Now, back in the 80s, everybody said, no, there is no malleability. You're just hardwired. You are what you are. Now, it ended up not being true, but you wouldn't have faulted somebody for believing that that's true, because that was certainly what was being propagated out into the world. So I came into brain plasticity, and this will illustrate the point of why you have to have a very well thought out relationship to truth about yourself, in that because of the dominant scientific narrative, which is that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, that you go through this hyper period of plasticity in your early years that peters out somewhere in sort of your early teens. I was sliding towards depression because I thought that I was as good as I was ever going to be, and I was not very impressed, and I wasn't making my way in the world very well. And that just really scared me, that I had these big dreams and I didn't have the skill set to pull them off. So I started reading about the brain, and it was like this debate: is the brain plastic or not in adult years? And I just said, I'm going to act as if, even if it's a lie, I'm going to act as if it's true, that I can make change. And even though I didn't know if it was true, acting as if it were true put me down a path of trying to get better. And that ended up changing my life because it really was true. So even if it had been a lie, so I always tell people, you should believe that you can do anything you set your mind to without limitation. So I have these rules, the beliefs really, 25 beliefs. And I think it's belief number 5 is you can do anything you set your mind to without limitation. Belief number 6 is, hey, guess what? Belief number 5 is actually a lie. You can't do anything you set your mind to. It's certainly not without limitation, but it's an empowering lie that will get you to act in a certain way, the pursuit of skills being the way that I'm talking about. And if you pursue the acquisition of skills, you really will get better.